What is up? And welcome to the Bills team preview. We're here to break down America's favorite team of 2020, the Bills Mafia. Coming up on today's show, we're going to talk about our favorite and least favorite moves of the offseason that the Buffalo Bills made. We're talking about fantasy football. Who are we trading for? Who are we trading away? Look, 2020 was the season everybody became a Bills fan, right? But 2021's a different year, and Josh Allen and company are going to have an encore. What are they going to do for that encore? To help us, as always, I invite on some really smart football people, but who also happen to be fans of that particular team. We got Jeff Bell, Fantasy Pros, Football Guys, among others. We got Adam Pfeiffer, FTN, and of course, Victoria, Football Guys, Ball Blast. They're going to help us break it down. We're going to get into that right after this. I am stoked about this. We've been talking about it now in the group chat for a few weeks. We've been setting this up, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I hope you get strapped in and ready to talk about the Bills. We break them down, and this is always really important to do. We want to make sure that we're looking at things from a big perspective, but we don't look at the team perspective too. And nobody pays attention to the Bills as much as Bills fans do. And, when you've got people as smart as this crew, it's just good to pick their brains and get their thoughts on it. I'm going to let them introduce themselves and tell you where they can find them and what they're working on this offseason. We'll start with Victoria. What are you working on, and how can we support you over the course of this offseason?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So much going on. I'm so happy there's only 8 more weekends of football. Let's go. We've got, I'm working on a piece in the Ball Blast draft guide that'll be coming out in August, and doing a piece on second-year running backs. So stoked to talk about that. Updating my rankings on Football Guys. Have an article on Austin Eckler being a league winner this season for Football Guys coming out soon as well. And just, man, I'm so happy to finally be here. So stoked we can get this on the calendar, guys. Ready to talk Bills.
Yeah, I guess I'll go next.
You're muted.
Yeah. Adam Pfeiffer, FTN Fantasy. I'm doing a series where I am going through a bunch of players that are being drafted very close to each other in ADP and kind of debating who I'd prefer in fantasy. So, for instance, Ezekiel Elliott and Saquon Barkley is one that I put up today. And then, other than that, still doing some basketball stuff because I'm a degenerate. And Derek Brown and I are doing the Fade the Chalk podcast about 3 or 4 times a week right now, and it'll be 5-6 times a week during the regular season. And yeah, we've been in the group chat really, really excited about this, and it's even more exciting. This is 2 years ago, Bills. They'd be like, okay, we'll do it, but now it's just legitimately super exciting. So I'm glad to be here.
That's why Adam is a pro, and I'm still learning. I appreciate you jumping in there, Adam. And Jeff, speaking of pros, fantasy pros, Jeff, what are we got going on? And how can we support you over this offseason?
Absolutely. Jeff at For Whom J Bell Tolls. You can find me with Fantasy Pros. I'm doing Devy content and NFL content over there. I just had my first piece go up with Football Guys and a little featured spotlight series, and so that's gone well. And you can find me Tuesday nights at 7:30 on the Devy Royale. And that's a Devy podcast that we do on the Going for Two network with Kevin Coleman and Christian Williams and myself. And then Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock, our fun little show with our group, the Coming Off the Edge at 7 o'clock. So all around, and Tuesday night's my big night for podcasting, and certainly guest appearances like this are fantastic, and I'm appreciative of the chance, but mainly content written will be on Fantasy Pros and Football Guys.
Well, I so appreciate all you guys for joining me. I mean, truly, you guys are some of my favorite in the industry, and I'm so excited to talk about Bills with you. And if you are in the chat, as you saw me pull up a few different comments there, if you have questions for these guys, definitely let's make sure we get those in the chat, and we will get to those as they become relevant through the course of our talk here. But we're going to start with the moves that they made this offseason. We did this show, Victoria, Jeff, and I, and a couple of others, and we talked about what the Bills might do. Well, now we pretty much know what they did do, pending one maybe move that we're looking forward to. But Adam, let's go right back to you and just say, what's your favorite move that the Bills made this offseason?
Can I say retaining Brian Daboll?
Ooh, that's a good one.
I was so worried that, and he deserved it, he was going to get a head coaching job, but I guess the Bills playoff run definitely had a lot to do with that in the timing, but just the way he transformed not only Josh Allen, but the entire offense. I mean, they went from a team in the past that would try to win games off, 17-10 games playing defense and running the football to like, I always go back to that Seattle game where Pete Carroll, they asked him, he was like, I didn't know they were going to throw the ball like that. And like, they literally just didn't run the football. And like Brian Daboll just doesn't care. Like if the defense can't stop what they're doing, he's not going to just have balance to have balance. So Brian Daboll for me, and of course they retained pretty much everybody that was a free agent for them, which was huge, minus a couple players. But yeah, for me, Brian Daboll, I think like Stephon Diggs should get a ton of credit for what he did and how he helped Josh Allen, but Brian Daboll deserves a ton as well. So getting him back calling the plays, obviously I think this is huge for the Bills offense.
I love that call. He was such a huge part of what, the step forward that Josh Allen made and all that. Jeff, what about you? What was your favorite move that the Bills made this offseason?
Yeah, Adam took the words out of my mouth. And I was really going to go with continuity. Keeping Brian Daboll, keeping Darrell Williams on the offensive line, being able to work out Mitch Morris's deal and cut him down a little bit to get some flexibility. Really just keeping the pieces together, because last year I think took some people by surprise, and it almost felt like that was a team on the rise, and then it got a little bit further than people really expected. Now we're coming back as an experienced team and ready to go right back into the playoffs again, and all the main pieces are still there.
Very good. Victoria, how about you? What was your favorite move this offseason?
Absolutely love those answers. I love that we re-signed Matt Milano. I know some fans were 50-50 on that re-signing, but I love that he's back for our defense. I really hope our defense can get back to where we were a couple of years ago. We just kind of been middle of the pack last year, but we were like top 5, I think, for the 2 years before that. So hopefully Sean McDermott can get us back there. Under the radar, Mitch Trubisky, is he the best backup quarterback in the league now?
I low-key love that move.
Yeah.
My friends made fun of me. I thought that was such a good move.
There's nothing to make fun of. Honestly, think about all the backup quarterbacks. I sincerely can say that he's probably the best backup in the league. And another under the radar move that I loved was retaining Isaiah McKenzie. I know we got rid of Andre Roberts. I'm hoping McKenzie can come in and just be an epic punt returner for us. I just picture that Miami game at the end of the season where he returned that punt for a touchdown, and he was electric. I mean, I hope he could just do that for us this season as well. He can really turn on the Jets.
I love that you mentioned that about Mitch Trubisky, because like, even just thinking about from a standpoint of a strategic move for the Bills themselves, like if he gets 2 games at the very end of the season this year, next, or something like that, he's going to command like a big price tag. You're going to get a comp pick, like, something like that. And at least somebody who, and that's kind of what Sean Payton has done down here in New Orleans with Teddy Bridgewater. And, it's a smart move. Like, I do like the fact that he's a young quarterback and he's going to get another chance in the league to start somewhere, and the Bills can benefit from it by picking up pretty cheap. So I like that.
Yeah, and keeping continuity, his ability to play a similar style to Josh Allen, I think that's big with the offense. He can scramble around, he can make some plays happen, and so they're able to. It's not one of those things where Josh is moving around the field and then your backup quarterback's a statue back there, and so you can kind of keep that same structure.
Let's move on, and then obviously not everything is sunshine and rainbows in Buffalo. Was there anything that was your least favorite move of the offseason? Victoria, we'll go right back to you for that one.
Are we ready to talk about not signing Zach Ertz yet? I mean, I think we can get into that. I'll say though, before we do get into that, because I know we want to hit on that. Getting rid of Corey, our punt returner, that was kind of a question mark. He was outstanding last season. I just remember watching so many games and being like, are you kidding me? He was outstanding. It sounded like maybe he wanted more money. I'm not really sure, but that was a question mark for me. I didn't like that. But there was so much good stuff. This was a tough question to answer.
Jeff, what do you think?
I really wanted a running back in the draft. We saw right before they were on the clock, Najee Harris and Travis Etienne both went. I was really hopeful that they could add a weapon in the backfield, because I'm just not sold on the backs. Ultimately, I'm happy with what they did in the draft. Rebuilding the lines, I think, was really important, but I just wanted one of those electric pieces to be able to add and put the offense over the top.
That was surprising, right? Like, that was one of my most surprising things from leaving the draft, is that the Bills didn't walk away with anybody. And there was a lot of, like, when you read the press clippings leading up to the draft, it sounded like they wanted one. They knew they didn't have a home run hitter on their roster, things like that. And Anthony asked this question, so we'll stick with that. And answer is, should Zero RB Faithful buy into Zach Moss and or Devin Singletary? What do you, Jeff? But right back to you since you mentioned the running backs there.
So Zero are running back. You're looking for anybody that you can plug in. So I can maybe see an argument. I just don't think that they're going to be a focal point in the offense, and it's really going to be touchdown dependent. And Adam made a great point. Brian Daboll is going to do what's the most efficient thing to do, and I don't think with Josh Allen and the other weapons that the most efficient thing is ever going to be running the football on this team. So I don't think we saw injuries last year. We saw guys get knocked out, and there wasn't the type of role where one guy just took over the backfield and ran with it. And so I think when you're building zero running back, that's kind of what you're really hoping for. And especially at the price tag that you need to buy these guys, there's still great handcuff options there that a guy like Tony Pollard, who if he gets the job, he's going to win your league. And Zach Moss and Devin Singletary aren't going to do that.
Devin Singletary had a pretty big drop in the playoffs, and TJ Yeldon, because of a Zach Moss injury, ended up playing way too many snaps. Adam, I think we talked about that at one point. Is Zach Moss actually low key pretty important to this team? Like somebody that is going to be able to take a lot of the handoffs, and if he can stay healthy for a long period, is it possible he becomes somebody that has a lot of value for us?
I mean, I think because he's still coming off the ankle surgery, so it's when training camp starts, I want to see, I wouldn't be surprised if Moss and Singletary were splitting first team reps in camp. He's not one of the 3 or 4 most important players on their offense, obviously, if you're including offensive line as well. For me, I just think what comes down to the Bills probably want to, all offseason, there's been everybody saying the Bills want to run the football more. They want to, I don't agree with that. I think they want to run the football better, more efficient, but I don't necessarily think they want to run the football more because they were 1 game away from the Super Bowl and they were one of the best offenses in the NFL with what they did last year, and Brian Daboll is back. So I struggle to just think, Buffalo 100% wants to run the football more, and if they did, they would have made, Matt Breida was their only move in the offseason at the position, and he might get cut. So it's I think Moss and Singletary both have important roles, but they're not they're not going to be what makes this offense go. We know that.
Well, any comments on the running backs, Victoria?
I'm in agreement. I don't, especially for fantasy, I'm with Jeff too. I'd rather take a higher upside player that's potentially going to help you down the stretch, and instead of keeping an average player on your bench. Josh Allen is the running back 1, and we all know that. So just keep that in mind.
Adam, let's circle back to you for your. You have anything for the least favorite move of the offseason?
Yeah, everything the Bills did in terms of signings. A lot of people weren't crazy about the Gregory Rousseau pick, but it's whatever. You're at the end of the first round. You're taking a shot on a pass rusher. I don't really care. I talked about this on the Fade the Chalk podcast. We talked about Zach Ertz, but I wanted the Bills to sign Gerald Everett so badly because I think he's really good. And Zach Ertz is talented as well, but the Bills, they have guys that are going to catch the football, right? Cole Beasley, Sanders, these guys are going to be high catch rate guys, Steph Diggs, but Everett would have given them probably more consistency than Dawson Knox and similar yard, or probably better yak ability. But look, I still believe in Dawson Knox to an extent. We'll see if the Bills do, but I would have loved to see them try to get Gerald Everett. Maybe they were holding out because apparently the Ertz rumors have been months and months, and I don't know if the Eagles just want too much, but I was hoping and kind of predicting that they would sign Gerald Everett or someone, one of the tight ends. But I mean, we'll see. I mean, right now it's Hollister and Dawson Knox, and we'll have Zach Ertz rumors for the next 4 weeks probably. So.
Oh, and the Pats signed Jonnu, my heart broke definitely.
Same.
A little bit.
I know. We talked about that on the episode that we were before.
That would have been so
we wanted,
good.
But
imagine defending the Bills inside the 5 with Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and Jonnu Smith.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
And I don't think Zach Ertz is done. So I mean, if you can land him, that ends up being a pretty good move too. I mean, he's a reliable target and somebody. We haven't talked a lot about some of the other additions, which we'll get into here, but there's a lot of maybe. We'll talk about it here. Let's jump into this. Who are we looking to acquire from the Bills? And I think when we think about who they lost, so John Brown didn't resign, obviously, but picked up Emmanuel Sanders. is there anybody, whether it's him, Gabe Davis? I feel like everybody knows Stephon Diggs. Everybody knows Josh Allen. We talked about the running backs a little bit. What about in that receiving game? Like, is there anybody we should be looking to acquire? Jeff, start with you on this one.
So the way to approach it, you've got the three guys, Gabe Davis, Cole Beasley, and Emmanuel Sanders. The situation, and depending on how deep your league is, whoever's the cheapest, I feel like would be the guy to acquire. Certainly in Dynasty, you're going to go with Gabe Davis. My concern is what you're going to see out of this Bills offense is kind of similar to Arizona's offense, where everything is really just flowing through Diggs, and the other guys are great if they get you a touchdown, but if they don't, I don't know that the volume's necessarily going to be there. I think Beasley was kind of a necessity last year, and Emmanuel Sanders coming in, kind of covering that because they didn't have – Gabe Davis hadn't emerged yet for most of the year, and they didn't have that third receiver when John Brown was down, and so it was kind of just running through two guys. And so when you've got a healthy Beasley, you've got Sanders there, and you've got Davis there, it's just a whole lot of really hoping for a touchdown on any of these plays outside of Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, interesting. There's been a lot of positive reports about Emmanuel Sanders, and it's kind of interesting because I went into the offseason expecting that I was going to be like a big Gabe Davis guy, but the reports on Emmanuel Sanders, it scared me a little bit. Victoria, like, should it be like, or is there anybody else that you're looking to acquire here?
I want to hear what you're hearing here. I'm really looking forward to seeing Gabe in the passing game. I just feel like if he can't beat out a 34-year-old Sanders on the depth chart, then Gabe's not who we, dream he can be, right? He was electric last year when he got the chance. He had 600 yards on only 35 receptions. I think his average reception was 17 yards. It was ridiculous. He had 7 total touchdowns. That's 1 less than Diggs. He had 4 games as a wide receiver 22 or better. And my favorite is that in weeks 12 through 16, he played 94% of the snaps. That, to me, gives me hope. I know Sanders is scaring a lot of people off of him, though. So if his value is dropping, I'm taking that all day. I'm looking forward to seeing Gabe. Beasley in the news again today, trending on Twitter, unfortunately. I don't know when he's going to give it up, but
Did he drop a new rap single? Is that what it is? Is that?
Yeah, I think so. No, not even a little bit. I wish that was it. I did see, I think it was Dan Fates that tweeted today that an older video of Beasley talking back in January how he gave up his social media and how it was toxic, and he needs to listen to his own advice, I think, because I don't know. He's just ruined his brand, I feel like, for Buffalo. But I don't see him retiring either. This rumor that he's just going to retire because he's so angry about the vaccines, I think it's a little ridiculous. I think he'll still be relevant, but he had a career year last year. So I'm not expecting to see 960 yards and all those receptions again.
Yeah, Adam, it seemed like Beasley was like when Josh Allen was facing teams that would pressure him a lot, like Beasley was the go-to guy. Like he was kind of that quick guy, knew where he was going to be, seemed kind of like an important part of the offense. Like certainly no idea how to speculate if he's going to be there or not. But, do you think, he's being undervalued right now. Maybe he's somebody to acquire. If not, who do you think?
Yeah, he was the guy when Buffalo was playing a lot of zone defense and it makes sense, obviously, where he just, got underneath the zone. Like, he gets open as well as anybody. I'm still team Gabe Davis. Like, the Bills run 4 wide as much as any team in the league. And, like, I think, first of all, they've liked Emmanuel Sanders, I think, for like 2 years now. They wanted to bring him in. So it wasn't too surprising to see them do that. But they also wanted to just make sure they got another receiver to fill in for John Brown so they can keep playing 4 wide, because they didn't want to go 4 wide as much down the stretch when John Brown was hurt, because Andre Roberts is more of a return man, and Isaiah McKenzie they don't view as like a full-time receiver. So like Davis is still going to be on the field a ton, even with Sanders and Beasley there. And like Victoria was talking about, like he was their deep threat. So I think there's still a role for him to be, not somebody you want to start every week in fantasy and redraft. In Dynasty, I would definitely use the Emmanuel Sanders signing to try to trade for him on the cheap. Because again, like Beasley's on a 1-year deal, Sanders is on a 1-year deal. This time next year, he could be starting opposite Stephon Diggs. He could be starting opposite Stephon Diggs this year, at some point. So I'm still 100% in on Gabriel Davis. And yeah, Beasley, as long as he's there, like he's going to have his role. He's going to be targeted at a pretty high rate, especially if they continue to pass as much as they did last year.
Yeah, I really like that because, you're right there. We can sometimes overreact, even if we get into camp and like, maybe it's just Emmanuel Sanders is a good interview and people, beat writers are like, oh, I really like this guy.
I think
And
Sanders is still like legitimately pretty good at this point of his
Yeah,
career.
absolutely.
I just think like Gabriel Davis, like the signing, and there was a report that said like that Sanders might start over him because they're not fully confident. I don't really buy that. I just think it's more of they wanted the fourth wide receiver for 4 wide sets and just kind of fit their offense with Dayball and Josh Allen.
I do want to throw out one really deep name, Isaiah Hodgins. They took him last year. Yeah, they like him a lot. He's a big receiver. I think he's 6'5". They took him last year out of Oregon State, and he was hurt all year long. And the dude catches everything. And so if they don't add a tight end, he's a name to look for. He's gotten camp rave reviews out of camp. So in the red zone, he could be a target that really works his way in there.
Well, I just looked up. So Gabriel Davis in DLF's ADP this month, he's going as the wide receiver 58 at 123 overall, which seems like a great value. I don't even see Isaiah Hodgins on here, so he must be free.
Deep. So he was in our our 20 team league that we just drafted. Yeah. I got him in I think round 19 or 20. So he's deep, but I'm just saying that this is a guy that they really liked last year. They didn't add receivers outside of Emmanuel Sanders, and the guy they drafted, I'm blanking on the name, but I think he's more a special teams guy, the guy that they drafted this year. So just keep a lookout for Isaiah Hodgins.
What about, is there anybody on this roster that it's time to sell high on? Adam, what do you think?
Is there anybody I'm not moving off Josh Allen or Stephon Diggs. Like they're both incredible. And it's like nobody else is really at a point where I think you can sell high, right? Like I think we haven't seen it from Zach Moss yet. Maybe this time next year it's possible, but like Singletary's not being drafted. Like, I don't know, am I missing something? Like I just don't think there was anybody that you kind of can sell high on.
What do you guys think?
Unless you're worried about, Josh Allen only doing it 1 year, but I'm not at all. So
who in their right mind thinks
we're also so
come
biased,
into my
so
mentions right now? Just do it. Try it. No, I'm completely in agreement. You can't sell Moss high. You can't sell Singletary high. You gotta hold. You gotta hold those guys. And if you're getting rid of Diggs because he's 27, you're ridiculous. In Dynasty, I mean, obviously not redraft, but I'm in agreement there.
I'm with you guys on that. I do think there is an underswell of people in the Dynasty community saying like, oh, Diggs is 27, and this is about the point that he's getting real close to the age cliff. Like his value might not ever be as high again as it is right now in terms of what you can get back. I do think there may be some truth to that in terms of just if you're just looking at the numbers and DLF, and if you're Peter Howard and you're just looking at your spreadsheets, then I can see that. But like, who in the league could have more targets over the next 3 years than Stephon Diggs?
I was gonna ask you that. Who would you be looking to target in a trade?
Yeah, right.
To give Diggs away?
No,
I don't know.
Yeah, and I think as Bills fans, we don't want to. The real maybe answer to this question, we don't want to say it, but Gabe Davis could be the guy to sell high because I think that we've seen the flashes and we're excited about that, and certainly he could grow into that number 2 wide receiver role. But he could also just kind of be a splash play guy, and you're really selling him on that. But you mentioned he's wide receiver 58 in DLF, so that's down a little bit. But I do think that there are some in the community and maybe some fans that have a higher expectation and would be willing to pay a higher price for him.
I like that answer, actually.
Yeah, that is really good. Plus, I think Stephon Diggs is not the kind of guy like who's going to age poorly, I don't think. Like he gets so much separation. He's a technician, great route runner. Like, and that stuff just takes longer to age than somebody that is just going up and getting jump balls or, things like that. Like his skills, I think, will help him longer than maybe some other wide receivers.
And we talked like on the podcast, we always talk about the Bills and Dynasty. It's like their core is locked up. Like Josh Allen's going to get an extension like any day now. McDermott, Brandon Beane, these guys are locked up. Like we'll see what happens with Dayball after this year, but it's like that core is all there. It's all going to be like nothing's going to change from that team. Which is why I like a lot of these Bills players in Dynasty, especially Davis and Stephon Diggs, because you're tied to Josh Allen for the next however many years once they extend him. Brandon Beane is like, we haven't even talked about Brandon Beane. He might be like the best GM in the league, honestly. Again, we're biased, but like what he's done and he's going to continue to do for this team. Like it's so weird. Like I need to be pinched because the situation in Buffalo is so good. It's just I like saying that out loud because I'm allowed to say it without being ridiculed. It's awesome.
It's a great time to be a Bills fan, right? I mean, like there are so many good things, and even like trying to come up with like the draft was basically all interior line, so like 2 defensive ends, 2 tackles. Then you had a guard, you had a wide receiver, 6th round Marquez Stevenson, who might be a really, really deep sleeper, I guguess. And
they
then
probably want him to return kicks too. So
yeah, I think he's a special teams guy.
But there wasn't a lot of turnover. Like you replaced John Brown with Emmanuel Sanders, which I like John Brown. I feel like that's maybe a little bit of a downgrade because I think John Brown was a little undervalued for what he could do. He just couldn't stay on the field. But yeah, like there's just not a lot of turnover. You had Matt Breida, and that's about it. Like to the offense, and it is. You're right, Adam. It's a good time to be a Bills fan, and I think right now you would say very easily the king of the AFC East, right? So that leads us kind of into our last question as we get into the storylines and we get into where we're going to get to the preseason. All that it is. Other than anything we've already talked about, and maybe it just is that, what are the camp battles and things you're paying attention to in Victoria, and why is it the Zach Ertz trade?
Oh, he would just if that happened, it'd just be a big splash. He's obviously clearly has name value still. We've not have solid production out of a tight end in quite some time. And you look at a team like the Chiefs where they've got Kelsey there whenever you need him, and he is such a pivotal player for them. I think that's just something really, really big that we're missing. I'd love to have him if he's still got something left in the tank. But other than that, we talked about, obviously, Gabriel Davis and Emmanuel Sanders. I'm looking at the cornerback battle. I'm hearing good things about Dane Jackson. I love that pick in year past, and I'm hearing really good stuff out of him. We really don't have that solid option opposite of Tre'Davious White. I'm hoping Trey White, too, can just return to his greatness. He wasn't bad last year. I don't want to say that. He just I want to see that spark again from him. I want him to just, I love that guy, man. So the cornerback battle, and I don't know what else. What do you guys think?
The quarterback battle is a good one, and I saw a note from Brandon Beane that there was some criticism over not being able to land a cornerback in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a really good one. Teams definitely threw the ball 22nd most pass attempts against last year, so they knew kind of where to attack them. And if they don't figure that out, that could be a problem. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I just want to, like, the defense as a whole. Like Victoria talked earlier about how like the Bills a couple years ago were like a top 5 unit, and now they've kind of been around league average. But like I remember in the beginning of last year, they could not defend tight end to save their life. Matt Milano was out.
Yeah.
And like I would love to see Tremaine Edmonds Tremaine Edmonds is still like 22, and he's going into his like 4th. It's insane how young he is. Like he can get better. Matt Milano is one of the best coverage linebackers in the league when he's healthy because he's a converted safety. Like if those two can play together for a lot of snaps this year, I would love to see how they can kind of improve covering the middle of the field and the run defense. It's been bad for a couple years, but like they didn't have any interior presence last year because Star Lotulelei opted out. I don't know if you guys seen the videos of him. He looks like to be in incredible shape.
Yes.
I think their defense could go back to being like top 10 or so. Like they have playmaker. They have the best safety duo in the league. Yeah, I said it. They're good, but they just got to stay healthy. And I think getting Star Lotulelei back, and if they're Jerry Hughes, despite being 30 plus years old, is still really effective. And if these young pass rushers like Ed Oliver and the guys they drafted can take steps forward, then they could be really good.
Ed Oliver is a good one. I want to see him take a step forward.
Yeah.
AJ Epinesa as well. Just see what we got.
Turns out the Aaron Donald comps were not great after all, but it probably shouldn't have been there. It was more so because of his like size, speed metrics and stuff for a D lineman. But yeah, he's nobody's Aaron Donald. But yeah, I would love to see him become a much better. Like he's been okay stopping the run, but his pass rushing has been kind of mediocre, which is what he got drafted to do.
Yeah, to your point on Star Lotulelei, 27th in the league in terms of rushing touchdowns given up. So certainly having him back in the middle of that defense would help a lot. Jeff, what do you think?
You've hit all the points. Starlo Tele coming back, and whether or not they can work these young defensive ends in. AJ Epineza, they used their first 2 picks on him. You mentioned Rousseau, Basham with the 2nd round pick. What pass rush can they generate? Because that was the biggest problem. And you look at the secondary. I mean, 3 of the 4 pieces are fantastic, and so kind of filling the hole in that. You're never going to have a whole unit that is just the best in the league. It's just not going to happen. And when 3 out of the 4 are among the best in the league, you really need that pass rush to step up. And that's where they've really struggled in the past, is generating pass rush. And outside of Jerry Hughes, really Mario Addison did a little bit, but he's up there in age as well. And then it's really just up the middle. And the biggest guy is going to be Edmonds. If Edmonds can take that next leap forward that we're kind of been waiting for, he's got the tools, he's got the size, he's got everything that you want to see. If he can step up and be that, he's not going to be a Luke Kuechly type linebacker, but if he can be the guy that is all over the field, the leader of the defense, and really emerges as the superstar of the defense, that's where the biggest difference can be on the entire team.
Absolutely. We do have a couple of comments coming in here. Taylor, I still high on Kelvin Benjamin.
Good luck, Taylor.
He's a Popeye's biscuit away from being a tight end.
But this was kind of a weird signing, right? Like, has there been any news about, like, is he good? Like, is he doing anything good? Like, is there any chance that Kelvin Benjamin becomes a thing?
He's on the Giants, so he can do what he wants.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's how little I paid attention to this.
As a tight end.
Colors used to be a bill. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he literally is a tight end, though, on the Giants.
Yeah,
like, I think he's listed
end.
on depth chart as a tight end.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is great, because the Bills, at one point, their starting receivers were Kelvin Benjamin, Andre Holmes,
Zay
and Zay Jones.
Oh, God.
Well, 3 years ago wasn't like
Josh Allen's rookie year.
Yeah, it was his rookie year.
Robert
Wasn't
Foster.
that long ago.
Yeah,
Robert Foster. Oh.
that was unreal.
Taylor wants to talk Dawson Knox a little bit. Like, is there even a chance that he becomes something more? Like, can he be a top 12 tight end?
Hypothetically, yeah.
Top
I think
15?
he's physically gifted. It's just he needs to put together the little pieces. He drops the ball too often. I'm
Unreal.
guessing there's some concerns about him running routes and things like that. He's got all the measurables that you could possibly want, and this offense is going to throw the ball. So certainly there's a plausible scenario where he's a top 12 tight end, and especially the bar is so low to be a top 12 tight end.
I mean, when he gets the ball in his hands, he's ridiculous. Like, there was that play against the Bengals, 2 years ago? Like, he just stiff arms everybody. It's just like,
and he makes
ridiculous.
the most insane catches, like one-handed grabs.
But then he'll drop the easy
hits
ones.
it in his chest, and you're like, "Yo, hit the jugs, man! Come on!"
And that's why the Ertz rumors have been there, because Ertz isn't going to do anything close to what Dawson Knox can do after the catch, but he's going to be way more consistent running his routes and getting in the spots and catching the football. So, but watching, like, as a Bills fan, if you watch the plays Dawson Knox makes throughout the course of the season, you're like, yeah, I don't want to give up on him. Like, so talented.
Yeah. Yeah. And you go back to Brandon Beane's end of year press conference. He mentioned the tight end position specifically after seeing what Kelsey had done, that they wanted to address it. And all they've done is get Jacob Hollister. So I think that's where a lot of the Ertz stuff is still coming out of, because he's really the only big name out there that's waiting to land somewhere.
Yeah. I made a bold call.
I
was just going to say, I made a bold call like a month ago that if Zach Ertz isn't on this team, the Bills are going to trade for Evan Ingram at the deadline, which would be kind of interesting, but that's my bold call.
Interesting, because they do have Kyle Rudolph there now, so very interesting.
Jeff, you seem like somebody that would know something about Tommy Sweeney.
Tommy Sweeney is a blocking tight end. He's a good blocking tight end. He kind of reminds me of the guy in Baltimore, not Max. I don't think it's Max Williams. It's the other guy that's still there.
Nick Boyle.
He's not quite at that level, but he's not going to be a receiving tight end.
Not going to be fantasy relevant.
It's okay. Neither was Lee Smith. You guys remember Lee Smith?
I do remember Lee Smith. You can never forget Lee Smith.
It's my brother's least favorite player on the Bills.
Got a 7th round pick for that man. Thank you so much.
Taylor says, who was that dude that quit at halftime once? Wasn't that Josh Norman?
No,
that was Vontae Davis.
That was Vontae
Oh my
That's right.
gosh.
No, it was Josh Norman that got stiff armed by Derrick Henry, wasn't it?
Yeah.
From into oblivion last year.
Oof.
Yes.
Vontae Davis literally just said, "I'm done," and left. Like,
that was crazy.
Yeah, and I don't think we're going to be signing Richard Sherman either. I think we can.
yeah.
Whoops.
That ship has sailed. So I know that was a rumor that was out there, but I think that's safe.
Yep.
To answer Dave's question here, Greg Rousseau was the first round pick out of Miami. Really talented guy. He opted out of the second season, right? But had like 21 sacks.
He was like, when the beginning of the draft process was like a consensus top 15 pick, and then he tested so poorly and he fell. I think most Bills fans and most people from the organization are probably more excited about Carlos Basham than Gregory Rousseau, and Basham went after him.
Yeah, that was a second round pick.
More experience, but Rousseau had what, 15.5 sacks in his last season?
Yeah, like if Rousseau hits,
yeah,
that could be like I said before he tested, he was like a top 15, 20 prospect, and then he tested so poorly, and he a lot of people didn't think he'd even be a first round pick.
My concern with him is that we've seen they like this guy for some reason. Because AJ Epinesa is a similar guy, and Shaq Lawson was a different regime, but he's a similar guy too. Where it's not the explosive guys that can bend and get off the edge. It's more of these just kind of solid all around defensive ends that I just don't know that there's a lot of utility for on a team like this.
I like
their D-line's deep though.
Yeah,
their D-line's like not like they don't have the one like dominant guy like Jerry Hughes is their best D lineman, and he's what 33. Yeah. But like they have a lot of they're kind of deep still, right? Like they got a lot of players last year. I think they'll be like they're not going to be like top 5 in pressure rate or anything. I'd be stunned if they were that, but I don't think they're going to be like bottom 15 or 10. Like they'll probably be somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
So last question that I'll ask you all is for a prediction about what the Bills' record is going to be this season. And remember, it's a 17-game season. So, last year, 13-3. So we add in one more game. What do you think? Victoria, we'll start with you. What's your prediction on the record?
I think I'm looking it up right now because I did this we were predicting the AFC East finishes for Football Guys article. I just found it. I had the Bills at 13-4, with Miami 10-7, New England surprisingly 9 wins, and obviously the Jets win. We don't even need to speak about them. So
that's good. So 13-4. So like basically the same as last year, right? Like that's kind of basically in the same realm, which was an awesome season. Jeff, what do you think? What's your prediction?
That was the number I landed at. They're playing the NFC South, and so Cal, as well as anybody, the NFC South is a pretty solid conference to be matched up against.
Yeah, how do we not talk about the Thanksgiving Day game yet?
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited! I'm thinking of going. I'm not gonna lie. I've been looking up some tickets and some flights. I really want to go. So
is it against the Saints?
Who's against the Saints?
Yes,
it's in Buffalo.
It's in New Orleans.
Oh yes, you guys have to come. No doubt, you have to come.
Yeah, but it's that was where I landed too. Playing the Chiefs, playing that division, and if you lose a random game here or there, then 13-4 kind of feels natural.
That makes sense. Adam?
Yeah, I was in between 12 and 13 wins as well. They have a stretch. I think it's like 2 straight road primetime games against the Chiefs and Titans, which will be tough. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they do play the NFC South, which Tampa Bay is the only team that you really worry about. Sorry, I think the Bills are just a lot better than the Saints at this point.
Yeah, me too.
But I will say the AFC East, outside of really the Jets, like I think the Patriots are going to be a lot better than people think this year. Because remember, they added so many players. They still have Belichick, and they're getting guys back from opt-outs. Yeah. So like I don't think these Dolphins and Patriots games. The Dolphins games have never been pushovers. But especially this year, I don't think those 4 games, I guess, are going to be just Bills rolling like the Stephon Diggs show. What was it, week 16 last year, where they won like 30-something to 9? Like they're going to be a lot tougher games this year, I think. But I still think they're too talented across the board to not win 12, 13 games.
Don't forget that Josh Allen is the father of the Miami Dolphins.
He really is.
Do not forget it.
If Dave says Super Bowl, does that jinx it? And do they get to the Super Bowl? Like, do they? What's it say?
Well,
you know what it is.
I think you're diet. So as a Bills fan, we have a long history of heartbreak, and I think what you're running into when you talk about getting to the Super Bowl is that guy in Kansas City that we traded, and are we going to lose to that guy for the next 10 to 15 years? And that would just be. We're conditioned as Bills fans that would be we finally hit the franchise quarterback, and then we lose to the guy that we traded every single year. And so if we can get past that game, then sure.
It feels like Josh Allen has like leveled up every season though. Like it feels like every season there's been like a little bit of progress. Like he, didn't make the playoffs and then made the playoffs, but then like took that experience and then made the conference championship. So we're going to see if he can make that extra leap here. And like you said, a lot of continuity on this team, a lot of things that are in the Bills' favor. And you guys might feel superstitious about it, but I would not be surprised to see this team bring home the Lombardi this season and help a lot of fantasy owners in the process with some really good fantasy options. So one last time, Victoria, just tell everybody where they can find you, plug your work, what you're doing, all that jazz.
Absolutely. You can find me at FFB_Victoria. Make sure you catch the Football Guys Mailbag Show every Wednesday at 7:30 Eastern. Forgot to plug that before with Troy and Dave. And yeah, look out for my Austin Eckler article soon.
Jeff Bell at For Whom J Bell Tolls on Twitter, the number 4. And you can find me with Fantasy Pros. You can find me doing some spotlight features with Football Guys. And then you can find me with the Debbie Royale, and of course, and then Coming Off the Edge. So a little bit everywhere.
And then Adam gives voice lessons and microphone setup lessons on the side too. But no, what are you working on, Adam?
Yeah, not quite. But no, I'm at FTN Fantasy doing a ton of football stuff, still doing basketball as well. And like I said, we have the Fade the Chalk podcast with Derek Brown 3-4 times a week. You can check us out on iTunes, all that great stuff.
Which is genuinely one of my favorite podcasts that I like to listen to.
Appreciate it.
Certainly appreciate the work that you guys do. And I love these. This is a great crew. This is a fun show, and I appreciate all of you for doing it. So
yes. Thank you for having us. It was a blast.
If you're not subscribed to the DLF channel, just look down there and just make sure. Like if it just says just subscribe, gives you that option, go ahead and hit the button and then hit the like and leave a comment. That'll help the YouTube algorithm and just show us that you like what we're doing here. So do that. And then for these guys, for DLF, certainly appreciate you tuning in, and make sure to pay attention and join us on the next show.